Okay, all right. This talk is not actually about growing pot, it's about growing your business. So, are you guys, do you own businesses, or you do, are you thinking about, like, what's your...
A manager at a business that's growing.
Okay, cool. How about you? Kind of. Okay, cool. Cool.
I'm a lead at UC Davis in the web development group, so.
Cool.
Yeah.
So everybody's trying to, grow their team. Okay, so I am the CTO and co-founder of ZivTech. We started in early 2008 with just my partner and I. We're in Philadelphia. We're now at our fourth office. I mean, we don't have 4 offices. We keep growing, we get a bigger office. And we have 30-some employees. And so I hear a lot of times that people are saying, where's the talent? Where are the developers? Where are the designers? Where are the Drupal experts? I can't find them, I can't hire them. And I feel like that question is a little unfair. It's a little bit like you should just, it's a sort of coming from like this entitled idea of like, you're just gonna start a business, there's just gonna be all of these talented people out there that you're going to be able to make money from. And that's just how it should be. And if that doesn't work out for you, that it's something wrong with the people out there, right? But really, to grow a business, it's really on you to create that talent and to be able to provide value to people so that they can provide value to you. It's not like there just are all these great people that you can just make money off of, and they're just out there like waiting for you to just come and say, hello, I know how to manage a business, sort of, So I like to think about my company in terms of what is our real output, right? So are we making websites, or are we making code, or are we doing client services? Like, what are we really doing, right? And ultimately, I feel like what we're really doing is we're selling the time of experts. And so what we have to be growing is expertise, right? So like the code is sort of disposable in a way. Like you make code, and then you have another project and you make code. You always tell yourself you're gonna reuse all of it, but you never do. You're always just like outputting more code. It's sort of a secondary output. But what you really need to be tending to, like if you were like a dairy farmer, your output is milk, but what you need to be tending to are the cows, right? So it's really the people that are your value, not the code. And so I've always been someone who's learned a lot from, I guess I'm a very negative person, so I learn a lot from people who do a terrible job of things. So one of my first jobs in Drupal was for a company that just didn't care about the people at all, just saw them as like interchangeable. They hired them all as contractors, told them not to contribute anything to Drupal.org because the code was really like, having our own special code was really what was going to differentiate us from everyone else. And that was just so backwards. It was like, nobody cares about the code. Your people are just walking away all the time. It's really all about the people. So as I started off, I was very much like a developer and really concerned about code, but I started to see over the years that what I could really do is to create careers for people, and that ultimately, like creating a career for someone, helping them to have like a a middle class life, or to have job security, or not only that, but to have a place where they're respected and they're among peers and they're treated well, and they can, you know, start a family. After a while, that to me just became so much more important than the technology, that it was just sort of like, you know, the technology is just sort of like, that's just what we're doing to, you know, that's just like to make money, but this is about people. Like, what can we do for other people? And I always think about, you know, American business, like, or just business in general, that the values are not like they used to be, and so now when you tell people that you care about the people in your company, they dismiss you, like, oh, well, you're like a lifestyle business, or, you know, you're not like a real business or something, because that's how far off we've come as a culture of what we really value. So we really decided early on that there wasn't a lot of talent just out there waiting for us to give them a job and just come in the door already knowing everything that they need to know and start making us money. So we decided that we were going to invest in people. We were going to find good people, invest in them long term, and grow them up over the years. And so what we gained by doing that has been really great. So by taking chances on people and then training them up, we end up with a really good retention. So when I compare us to like other tech companies, I always feel like we have much better retention and loyalty. And what that means is we have people that built a client site 7 years ago that are still maintaining it, that still have those relationships with the client, that know like the whole history of how we got to where we are with our infrastructure, that know each other really well and care about each other, that care about the company and will do what's best for it. And that's rare, and that's incredibly valuable to me. Like, that's not just like something that you can just replace with someone else. The team works really well together. People are you know, long-term friendships, so they communicate really well. Like, it doesn't matter like how many like scrum meetings you have, you can't make people communicate that don't like each other, don't understand each other. And I think communication is what really makes a team work. We also have a broad range of developers by going this way. Like, we have, if we want to do a site for Spanish language, it's like, okay, well, we have these 3 people that speak Spanish, you know, and we have people that, you know, are musicians or artists, or, you know, all different backgrounds that can connect with the clients, that can connect with different ways of thinking. We can say like, oh, well, you know what you could really use on your site is maybe like some animations or like some drawings. Well, we have like a comic book illustrator as our project manager, you know, because we don't just hire people who come in and they say like, well, you know, I have like 10 years of Java development. We hire people who come in and say like, I'm a comic book artist, but I'm interested in working for you guys. Can you like help me to learn? And the other big benefit that we have is that we support this culture of training. And that culture of training is actually very valuable for our clients as well. Because our clients typically need training just as much as they need websites made, right? So if we have people who value training and understand like that you're always teaching each other and you're always open with each other, that's to me a lot more valuable than the super you know, in super go deep developer who keeps his head down and doesn't really talk to anyone else. So we were sort of forced to go in this direction at the beginning, because we just couldn't afford to attract the people that we really needed on our level. I mean, it would have been like, we tried we've tried at times to hire more senior people. They want to make a lot of money, and they aren't always team players. Sometimes it's worked out, sometimes it hasn't. But in general, because we were a bootstrap company and we didn't have a lot of money and we didn't have a lot of local developers, and we very much believed in being like not a distributed team, because we valued the communication, the camaraderie of being all together. So we had limited options. So we just did what we could. I think having the office and having everyone together really helps us grow people up, because it reduces the friction of the communication, where it's like, you don't want to have to schedule a conference call to look at what's going on with someone's work, right? You want it to be more casual and more you're just walking by, you're just, always having a moment to check in with people. Because for me, I tend to be very introverted, but I value communication and teaching. So it has to be really easy to interact with people. Otherwise, I'll avoid it, and it'll just end up like at the bottom of my to-do list. Like I have to have, the people just have to be like right in my face, right? Like they have to walk up to my desk, and I can't get away. Otherwise, I'm gonna like not answer the phone or something like that. It takes a certain amount of empathy when you're dealing with people trying to learn new things. It's easy for you to get into this mindset where it's like, I could just do this myself. Like, this is taking way too long. Why don't they get it yet? Like, nobody taught me this. I got it right away. You have to keep working on your empathy and your patience as a teacher. And you have to make time for it. Like, you have to allow that it takes a lot of time for people to learn a new trade, and depending on the person, it'll take a different amounts of time, and it's going to take a lot of your time that you're going to have to invest into it. So that creates a problem, that need for all that training and all that time, because it's a business. So how can we find on-ramps for junior people to be able to contribute to the company while they're still in training, right? So we found lots of different ways to get some billable work out of very junior people. One of them is QA, so like having them do testing. It really gets them closely involved in the project. Documentation is another one. Like they can make documentation for the clients for how to use things, and that helps them understand how things are working. Site building for a Drupal shop has always been a traditional on-ramp. So we all, it's much easier to become a Drupal site builder in a couple weeks and be able to like do some basic site building tasks, add fields, add blocks and stuff like that with directions of like what you're supposed to be doing. You can learn that a lot faster than you can become a front end or a back end developer. So a lot of times we start people that way, and then they slowly get more development tickets and eventually ramp out of site building into being a back end or front end developer over a couple of years usually. Training materials is something that we work on as well, similar to documentation, but we make like training manuals, and then we use those to do public and private trainings. And so that can be a good one, because you can say to your junior person like, hey, I want you to write a training manual on this topic, and that'll keep them busy for quite a while. And they'll learn from doing it and potentially be able to be the trainer on the subject afterwards. We've also had them learn to write BHAT tests, which is a little bit easier than learning everything about the Drupal API to be a back-end Drupal developer. And we often have them be like first level support for our support clients. So they'll learn like that they need to reproduce the problem, try to get more clarity on what it is, see if they can figure it out, and then how to ask for help when they need to. So bringing in all these junior people, it can sometimes kind of scare me because I really care about the quality of what my team outputs. So the way that we deal with that is through a process, so that we sort of buffer the junior output from going live through. It has to pass through reviews and processes, right? So we do code review for everything. We work in feature branches and pull requests, so that means that their code is not going anywhere but just in their own little branch. And Probo is like a product of ours that lets you have a sandbox for each pull request. So their work is just living in this completely isolated environment until someone more senior has approved and merged it, right? So they're safe to play and make mistakes. We also have tiered billing levels so that more junior people are billing at a much lower level, so it allows them more time to complete a task than the senior people have. So they don't have so you don't have to feel like, oh, we can't assign them that work because they're going to blow up the budget. And we also just assume that as people are starting out, we're going to have to give a lot of discounts of their work. We assume that they probably aren't going to be making us money for possibly the first year, and that they'll hopefully start to break even. It's sort of a long-term investment. So we don't worry about if they go way over budget because they're learning something new. We just discount the time. And it's better to have them working on real work. That's where they really learn. So we've played around with like different levels of how formal our training is for people. And I guess because I'm pretty lazy, I tend towards pretty informal in general. But 2 years ago, we did a boot camp, which was a really great experience. We got a grant from the city of Philadelphia that covered some of it. And so we were able to make it a free program. It was in the summer. I really liked that it was free. I don't like how most boot camps are so expensive that it's only the most privileged people that get to take part and then get to have the career afterwards. And it was really interesting when we made it free how diverse the applicants were. Like, we didn't do any work to try to encourage women or minorities to apply to it. It was just when you made it free and you didn't have and they weren't required to have any computer science background. It was just that they had wanted to do it. It was just that they were interested, and that was the only barrier. It was a very diverse group that applied and came, and most of them were recent college graduates. A lot of them went to Penn and had majored in science or the humanities, and just as they were graduating realized that that wasn't actually a great career choice. So after 4 years of paying for that education, realized that they had to go into an actual career that exists in the current time. So, but it was really great because they had so many great soft skills. They were so good at working together and communicating, and had such good attitudes and good study skills, and were good writers. It was really great the way they could process what they were learning. They could write about it and work together. They were a really amazing group. And of course, part of our reason for doing this was that we got to then give job offers to whoever we wanted to. After working with them for 8 weeks, we knew pretty well who we wanted to work with. And So we hired a few people, and then a bunch of the other people, we helped them to get placed. And I think almost all of them now were able to get into a good career. This is another way that we've done like somewhat formal training, where we kind of keep a spreadsheet of different skills that somebody needs to work on, so that they can keep track of like what they need to be working on over time and keep checking in on where they see themselves. And this is like a self-evaluation of someone's skills. These are like a few other Drupal companies who've written some things about how they handle similar things, like an internship program, apprenticeship, mentoring, things like that. That's pretty common. But what I really try to focus myself on, if I I'm not able to do a whole boot camp or a big formal training, is to just focus on teachable moments. So like just being available for whatever comes up, because that's, I feel like, when people really care about learning something is right when it's the most urgent, right? So nobody's really that interested in like, okay, let's have a lesson about SSH configuration right now. It's like they'll maybe remember it a little bit, be like sort of engaged, but if they're like, hey, my SSH stuff isn't working, like that's the moment that they really are open to learning it the most. So I kind of just try to, instead of seeing things as an interruption where people are like, I have a problem, can you help me? It's like, no, like, don't interrupt me, make me a ticket, like, I don't have time right now. I try to remember that this is like the highest priority, that like these moments where they are really ready to learn a specific thing, if I can make myself available and other people in the group can make themselves available and let them know that like we are going to take that really seriously and we're going to jump in right away and help you and make sure that you really learn it, I think that's when people learn the best. So, and also I think that people learn by teaching, right? A lot of people, that's I guess that was like that Richard Feynman method, that you would really learn something if you can explain it to others really well. So we try to push our staff towards teaching each other. So even like the most junior people can always teach what they've learned that day. So even if they were only there for one day, they have something fresh in their mind. So we encourage them to write blog posts about really whatever they happen to be learning, and not worry about, oh, does this make us look like an amateur company because our blog posts are like so basic? No, I don't think it does. Like, I think it makes us look like a company that cares about people at all levels of their development career. So we have them creating documentation, teaching each other, and learning that like they can be a good teacher and they can teach clients. And so I've tried to see my job as more of a teacher and a mentor than as a developer anymore, because I feel like as a developer, I will only ever be one developer, right? I can be a great developer, but I can't scale that. The only way that I can scale that is by teaching what I know to other people. So I have to make that the priority. Otherwise, I'm just growing my one developer. So in order to stay focused on how important that teaching is, you have to kind of keep reminding yourself that it really has a high ROI, even though it often feels futile. Like, it often feels like, why am I going over this again? I could just do this myself. Like, this is just such a waste of time. They're never gonna get it. But they do get it. It just, everyone takes a different amount of time. So I guess for me, like I really am an autodidact, and I think a lot of people in tech are autodidacts, but you don't have to be an autodidact to be good at tech. And I think that a lot of people think like, oh, in order to be a great developer, you got to be an autodidact who like drinks Mountain Dew and stays up all night and, you know, has a ponytail and is kind of rude. And it's like, well, that's just not true. I mean, that's just a stereotype based on some of the people who are the originally kind of got into this field. But anybody can learn this stuff. Like, it's not magic, and it doesn't involve Mountain Dew at all. Like, you can be taught this stuff just like you can be taught any other career. It might take you a little bit longer for some people and faster for other people, but they can be taught. Okay, so I also think it's really important if you want to keep people for the long haul, which you do if you're going to be investing this much in them, that you can't try to pigeonhole them into just doing one type of work, right? You have to keep on giving them room to grow and say like what it is that they want to learn and which direction they want to go in. Let them move from one expertise to another, whatever is inspiring them, and try to work with them to make sure that it's something that's going to be profitable for your business. But it's always better, I think, to keep your people than to lose them because you didn't give them opportunities within the organization. They have to go somewhere else to get their opportunities. So some of the things that I try to avoid are the divas. So you know, I really see this work as like it's a team sport, right? So you have to watch out for some of those players who might be really good at what they do, but they could be really bad for morale because they are rude to others and they like to do everything on their own. You can maybe have some people a little bit like that who you just have do certain tasks, but in general it's dangerous for the team to have like too many LeBrons. Unpaid interns, I think it's unethical. I also think it is something that leads to only privileged people being able to be in our field. And it sends a message to the unpaid interns and the rest of your team that you don't really value people, and you're not really like going to invest in them personally. So if you didn't pay your intern, if they're still working with you 5 years later, they probably aren't quite as loyal or don't think quite as highly as if you had just paid them some nominal amount when they were an intern to try to, because people remember like how did you take care of them when they had nothing, you know? Contractors, I've had good and bad contractors, but from a business perspective, contractors are great because you can ramp them up and ramp them down, and you only have to pay them when you have work for them. But the problem is that the investment isn't there. So like they're not, it doesn't help you to invest time into their growth. They're sort of on their own team. They're not necessarily like helping the other people on your team grow. And they're usually like not in the office. So they can be okay, but in general, I don't like to spend my energy working with contractors. It only works for me if they're so good and so high level that they don't need my training and support. But I don't like to spend my time teaching and growing a contractor because they're not, you know, they're not there for the long haul. Cutbacks, I think, are really bad for a team. So we have always been sort of masochistically against cutbacks. So when work is slow, we try to weather it all together, because I feel like if you spend years and years investing in someone and then business gets slow and you cut them, to replace that person it's just gonna cost like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, they have so much knowledge about your projects and your clients and your team. Like, so to me, it's like if I'm short on money, I'm not gonna throw away an investment that's worth $1 million, right? I'd rather like beg, borrow, and steal first. So some of this philosophy, I think, ties into diversity as well, because I think when people talk about like there's not enough talent, they're sort of looking at it in a small pool. So like if you just put a job posting on job posting sites or Craigslist or wherever you put them, there's only a certain talent pool that looks at those postings. And I think that it's easy to think like, oh, well, those are public postings, like everyone can look at those, like, so that's like whatever talent's there, like they would be looking at those, right? But I feel like personally, if I was looking for a job, I wouldn't really look at those. Like I would maybe look at them, but then I would ask around like what kind of reputations these companies have, because as a woman, I don't want to work at a company where I'm not going to feel comfortable. Like I would rather just wait and get a personal recommendation about a company than to just like take my chances that it's just going to be like an atmosphere that I don't like that it's going to be a lot of aggression or a kind of a culture of putting people down, or I don't know, any kind of like bad culture. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Like a lot of people, they just don't want to have to go to work every day and like be the only black person or be the only Hispanic person or be the only gay person or like whatever it is. It's just stressful to not fit in at your job. So that means that the only people that really feel comfortable just applying to any job without knowing anything about the organization are just going to be the people who already feel like they're going to fit in. And that's a very small group of people, right? There's a much larger group of people that have all kinds of talents and abilities that that want to work at a place where they feel like they're going to be comfortable. And so we've found that as we've grown and we've made an emphasis to have a more diverse team, that it really wasn't hard. Like we barely even tried. And then once we started to have more women on our team, for example, and the same thing with having more LGBT employees and more employees of color, as we started to have some, then more people came and they said, and they were tracking us down, and they said like, we really want to work for you, because they could see that it was going to be a good environment for them. So now we have like people that are specifically trying to work for us, that are like high value, talented people. And so that has really made a big difference. So it's sort of like, while the other companies are like fighting over the same group of white computer science grads who feel confident applying for a job, we've got this access to this much larger group of intelligent people. Yeah.
So is diversity the focus, or is the talent the focus when you are trying to hire people? Sometimes this is the mistake I did. Sometimes I just hire people because you say I don't have any African American. It would be nice to have these African American kids. Okay, you hire them, and then later on you realize that you probably could have selected the other guy was more qualified or more talented. So what should be the focus?
Yeah.
We make that mistake of
Yeah.
prioritizing wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that we, you know, that we're always picking the best candidate.
Blind to the diversity and just going with the talent. What is wrong with that?
What's what?
Being blind to the anything else in that person, whether race, color, anything, just be blind to it and just
Well,
meritocracy.
yeah, I hear where you're coming from, but I also think that there is an advantage to having a diverse group, because you have a lot of applicants who are going to be comfortable working in that diverse group who wouldn't want to apply and wouldn't want to be in your company if you didn't have that diversity. So when you make it like it's like a home for every type of person, I think it's a better place. You're going to get more applicants and more clients that want to work with that. So there is like there are real advantages to be more diverse. But yeah, it does get really tricky when it comes to like picking candidates where you're just like, well, I don't want to like pick someone just because they fit this
Yeah,
role that I'm
no
trying to
quotas,
fill in.
That's what I'm saying. that we just
Yeah, I mean, luckily-
having quotas of
Yeah, I mean, luckily we haven't had to deal with anything as stark as that, where you're like, okay, we have these 2 employees, but we're trying to be more diverse, so we're going to take this one. It's been more like,
Yeah, natural, like I understand, natural growth, having a diverse pool of employment because the talent bubbles up and those are the people you hire.
yeah.
That is more acceptable.
I think you have to like put effort in to make it so those other people might see your job.
Right.
And
Right,
then
no,
that's
I understand that. Yeah, that part I definitely understand that you should know why those people are not applying even though you are so open or whatever it is. Yeah, that second bullet there is definitely very important.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
need to know why people are not coming.
I mean, it gets very awkward when you like get into like affirmative action and thinking about
Yeah,
like
yeah,
picking
no.
one. But luckily, it never became like that for us. It was more just like when it came to making the effort, it was more like reaching out. It was more like, okay, well, we have this really good applicant right now. We're not 100% sure we have enough work for them right now, but we're just gonna like take the gamble. So it never got as stark as like picking one person over another, but it can go in that direction. So some of the places that we're recruiting, we often recruit in person instead of just like job listings, because ultimately it's about personal relationships at a job. So we've gotten people from local boot camps. So we actually, boot camps are becoming very popular. Like you can't expect people are really ready to do client work after going to boot camp for 6 or 8 weeks, but at least they know like the basics about Git and text editing and some basics. So it's something. At least they're committed to it. I've hired a bunch of people that we've met at the Drupal meetup. So you can kind of tell when you're at the meetup if somebody knows their stuff and is open and collaborative and good to work with. So like a lot of times people will come if they've just moved to Philadelphia. They'll come to the meetup and then I'll pretty much offer them a job right away, because you can tell like that they're serious about their career. Public trainings can be a way to find people. Like just you can tell who in a class. Like a lot of times I do trainings every year at DrupalCon, and you can always tell like who in the class you would like to hire by the end. They're helping the other people. They're like real sharp. They're just following along everything. Friends of employees. That's actually, if you're not a very diverse group, that can be a recipe for continuing to not be diverse. But but it can be a good way to find people, because if you have got a bunch of real bright, creative employees, their friends often are the same. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to work with your friends. It makes people want to stay at the company. So we have a lot of these friends hires. I have 2 of my employees are friends of mine from before work, and a bunch of other people are like friends that we've brought in. It doesn't always work out, and sometimes that's a little difficult, but it's overall worked well for us.
So can I interject for just one
Yeah.
thing here on this one side? On the meetups one, please don't just show up to a meetup one time out of the blue and say we were hiring, and then you go away and you never show up again. I hate that, and I run a meetup, and so it's annoying to get that. This like they just drop in, you know, hey, I'm looking for a Drupal guy, blah 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 blah, and then they're out. You know what I mean? You're not participating in the community that way, and if you asked me, I would tell you don't go work for that person, because they don't care about this community, and you should, and you're here because you care about being part of this community.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the
Also,
recruiters
I was
try to-
hired right outside the front door of my meetup. That's the current job I have, because that's a great way to.
Yeah. And like recruiters try to come to the
Oh,
meetings, but I don't think anybody ever like actually bites on that. You know? Oh yeah, and colleges, we've started to do more bringing people in like their senior year as part-time interns, or the summer after their senior year, or even we bring them in the summer after their junior year, and then we let them work part-time during their senior year, and then we end up hiring them right out of college. So we are lucky in Philadelphia, we have a lot of good colleges, and we're able to bring in a lot of really talented people that way. But again, they're typically not like computer science majors. We're typically teaching them the tech work, although sometimes it's like their design, it works better with design majors. So if we're bringing in people that are so green a lot of times, and they don't have a CS major, we can't exactly like give them the FizzBuzz test or look at their portfolio. So like, how do we evaluate which are the best candidates? So in those cases, I try to just focus mostly on their soft skills, because I feel like the tech skills, if the person is sharp and clear-minded, they can learn those tech skills. But the soft skills, they'll probably won't learn. So if they don't have those soft skills, then I would assume that they won't learn them. So things like their communication skills, their writing skills, interpersonal skills, intellectual honesty, their strengths outside of our field to show that they know how to master things, and they're going to probably be able to master this as well if they've mastered an instrument or an art on their own. And if they have started learning the tech stuff, to see like how much they've learned so far. What can they tell you about what they've learned? How's their trajectory going? So these are just like a few of the people that I'm proud of. This is a friend of mine, Steve. I used to be in a band with him. Thought he was a real smart guy. Didn't know anything about the web. Started teaching him at night. He did really well. Hired him as a paid intern in 2008. He's one of our top senior developers now. And he's gotten so many raises. He probably makes 3 times what he started out making. And he's just a really great worker. This guy started out with very little experience. He had gone to design school, but only jobs he'd gotten before were kind of like unpaid internships where they didn't like invest in him. We started him out as a designer. He became our creative director and given us lots of great work. These are 2 people that we got from our boot camp who have been amazing. Allison is now sort of like a technical project manager or an account manager. getting us lots of great work from Johnson & Johnson, and she manages 6 people in her own department. She's amazing. Jason is now a back-end developer, transitioning into that from site building, and he's also really a great team player, can lead projects, clients love him. These are both people that had no tech backgrounds. Well, Allison did have a little bit, but didn't go to school for tech, and are like becoming our next generation of superstars. I put her on there twice because we actually take this same approach with the non-developer positions. So we have lots of people. We've started off as administrative assistants, receptionists, like jobs like that, who we hire really smart people for those jobs with the idea that it's going to be a gateway into a different path for them. So we've had so many people start off as administrative assistants that move up to become a project manager or an office manager or a documentation writer or marketing or all different roles. So this is one of our latest that had that role. She started after college as our administrative assistant. Now she's in marketing. These are two of our new employees from this year. Stephanie we got from a boot camp, and she's a front-end developer. And Michelle we hired as a replacement to Christine as our receptionist, and we're able in just a couple of months to find a position for her writing technical documentation. So she's very happy about that. And I always like to think like, I have 30-some people. Not all of them came, without a career, but a lot of them did, and a lot of them I feel like we were able to help them to have a good career and a good life and be able to buy their house and have babies and everything that they should have as humans. But it's not just like the 30-some people that we have now. It's also lots and lots, and this is just a sampling of like a few people that we've had over the years. I mean, lots of people have to move on. Their spouse has to move to another city or whatever, that they have to move on. But they move on to have a career, right? And so I can look back and say, like, a lot of these people, this is just like a subset of people that started off, like this guy, Steven, this software engineer, he started off without a green card, came to our office and knocked on the door and said that we couldn't pay him because he didn't have his green card, but could he just come and work for us every day? And we said okay, taught him stuff, got him an immigration lawyer, got him his green card, and now he's a software engineer in New York City. So it's like this, this is like so that's what I think really matters, helping people out if you can. So there's a version of this talk at these are the same URL. One of them is more tiny. You have to like put in your email address, marketing. But yeah, it's like a written version of the talk that's less mumbly if you want to reminisce. Any questions?
Yes. Do clients see the tiered billing levels on the junior people?
Yes.
Show them that you're doing it?
Yes, but we're actually thinking about moving away from that and just having like a blended team rate, because it's just so complicated for invoicing and figuring out where we are with our budgets. But yeah, we have done that for years because we were afraid that if we didn't have different levels, like how lawyers have different levels, that then the clients would demand to work with the most senior people and would try to get away from the junior people because it was all the same rate. But I don't know if that is really that true. I think if we have a blended rate and we say that the blended rate is based on these people being on the team, it's going to end up about the same and just be a lot easier.
Question about like past growth. If there's any beyond like recognizing when someone's interested in a certain area and wants to develop their skills more in that way. So like anything you can do to make sure that, I don't know.
Yeah, that they're
just having trouble
progressing.
figuring out exactly how that will work.
Yeah.
And obviously we want them to stay and grow.
Right. So we do. So everybody has a manager, and the managers do check-ins with everyone to see how they're doing, what they're learning, what they need help with, and things like that, and do performance reviews. And we also have like a rubric that is pretty minimal, but it's something. It's like a guide to our different levels for developers. Now we have one for front-end developers as well. So it's like we have these levels, which are our billing levels. So it starts like the lowest is level 5 and the highest is level 1. And then the rubric says like, in order to be on level 4, the person should have master version control and this, that, and the other thing. And in order to be on level 2, you should be able to lead a medium-sized project. So there's like these rough ideas of like what you would have to master to be on a certain level, but it's always like just a rough guideline because nobody ever matches those levels. Like it's always like, in reality, someone is really, really good at these things, but they're never really going to be that good at this other thing. It's like if level 1 is like, oh, you have to be able to make presentations and manage a team. Well, some people are never going to want to do that, but they're amazing at all these other things. So you have to kind of like weigh it on like a personal basis. But that helps us give people an idea of what they need to do to move up a level. And so then we have like sort of rough ideas of salary ranges within each level. So they can still get a raise while they're in the same level. And we try to give raises like a lot. Like we try to do it every 6 months. If it's like a terrible year, it might only be like once a year. But we're trying to like give the best people constant small raises to let them know that we value them and they're moving up. Because I think people psychologically, it feels better to have like 20 small raises than like one giant raise. So I think like having that like general rubric, it helps to have the conversations so that you can say like, okay, well you're at level 4 right now, and so what I really would need to see from you to move to level 3 is that you could, instead of just like writing like a hook here and there with us explaining like which hook you should use, you should be able to figure out the solution, and it involves like multiple functions, and you figure out the solution on your own. And that's where we want to see you within the next year to like move up to the next level. Anybody else?
Jody, you mentioned that you have like a little spreadsheet of skills you'd like to be working on. Is that tied into what we were just talking about, or
no?
Is that something else you have? And would you be willing to kind of open source that? So.
Yeah, that was just like something that one of the managers made for one of the people. Like different people need different levels of organization. So yeah, I don't know if I can share that easily because it has all the like personal stuff in it, but I can probably get the list of what all the skills were. So there's just a lot. Just to even make a list of everything that you need to know in this job is crazy. But okay, cool. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay.
So you said you have some sort of mentors for new people. Obviously, with the time that your senior developers are investing in teaching, you talk about checkpoints. How often do you do checkpoints, check in with them, or for you to still have your developers do work?
Yeah, so like the ideal is that if they will just work together, you know, like that's the ideal. If they will just like go into a room next to each other and work on the problem together and talk through it together. And some people are good at that. Some people will resist that, and they might not be like your better mentors. But the senior developers have to value mentoring to be able to make time for that. And yeah, it's going to mean that they're not always, it's going to cut into their billable time somewhat, but the way you can cut down on that is by doing a lot of it as like pair programming, where if you're really jiving well, it can be efficient. Like I have people that I work with that are more junior, where it's like they have different strengths than me. So it's like I kind of have the background and the knowledge, but they are younger and their minds are sharper and they're like more on the ball, so they don't forget like everything that they're doing constantly, right? So they're like kind of like keeping me like together and helping my morale, and all fresh faced, and kind of motivates me that I'm teaching them something while I'm doing it. So together we can be more efficient than separately. So that's like the ideal. So now we can both be billing and working on the project, and find ways that like we can both be productive at the same time. So. But yeah, it is definitely a challenge, and like not everyone is going to be able to balance it well. You might have to like kind of schedule time where they should be working together. But yeah, it is definitely an issue. It definitely cuts into like your short-term profits, and you have to look at it as a long game. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a good